I media trained you.
No, you didn't.
That's controversial.
It's controversial of raping kids.
Really good.
Okay,
It's
bye.
been a good one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Mwah, 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 mwah.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Okay, so the plan is hopefully this music thing takes off crazy next year.
Why is he saying? Why are you saying that like you're not like up there, gang?
Well, I'm not there yet. But hopefully it's like even crazier next year. And then I go on crazy year after year for the next 3 years. And then on the 4th year, I retire. And on the 5th year, I'm off the grid, living somewhere like on an island with this crazy crib. No social media, no digital footprint. I'm just gone. I'm just gone.
Of a 14-year-old girl found in a car abandoned in the Hollywood Hills. A popular New York-born singer tied to the vehicle, but not named a suspect in the girl's death. All while fans and internet sleuths dig up mysterious links between the singer and the young victim.
We learned a new timeline of events. We learned about what was happening with that property that apparently was being rented by David, whose real name is David Anthony Burke, which was reportedly, by the way, near where the car, the Tesla, with Celeste's body inside was found. This property apparently nearby. We learned there was a possibility she wasn't murdered. But here's the thing. There have been no arrests since her body was found in the trunk on September 8th. Authorities have not identified a suspect nor a person of interest. And to be clear, David has not officially been implicated in any wrongdoing or any crime.
Nearly 2 months after Celeste Rivas Hernandez's decomposed body was discovered in the trunk of singer David's Tesla, no arrests have been made, leaving investigators scrambling and her family desperate for answers. Libby detectives have raided David's Hollywood Hills home, seizing electronics and scarring for evidence, while private eyes like Steve Fisher chase new leads on Celeste's final sightings. But in the latest updates, a flood of damning clues look like pointing straight to David as the perpetrator, luring a vulnerable girl into his world when she was just 11 years old. How much darker can this twisted tale get? Could the depths of depravity in this case sink even lower? Or is the truth about to unravel everything we thought we knew? Stay tuned as we dive into the evidence that could finally crack it wide open. What do you think really happened to Celeste? The allegations painting David as the prime suspect in this case are mounting, and one of the most damning aspects revealing his role in Celeste's death is the intimate romantic connection between them, which began when she was alarmingly young. Evidence from leaked Discord chats dating back to 2022 shows David, then around 18, engaging in explicit conversations with Celeste, who was just 12 or 13 at the time. These messages aren't casual, they detail a budding relationship laced with romantic and inappropriate undertones, including admissions of physical intimacy. In one thread, David reportedly discusses having sensitive acts with her, framing it as part of their bond, while Celeste responds in ways that suggest she's eager but clearly underage. How does an aspiring musician rationalize pursuing a child he met online, especially when the power imbalance is so stark? The chats paint a picture of grooming, with David allegedly building trust over time, starting from innocent interactions that escalated into something far more predatory. Further digging into these communications reveals a pattern of boundary crossing that screams deviance. Celeste's Instagram messages to friends around the same period echo this, where she assures a pal via DM that she's safe, while staying with David, even mentioning mutual follows and private accounts linking them. But safe from what or whom? The fact that David unfollowed associates like Gustavo Osorio, referenced in some chats as part of their circle, right after details leaked raises red flags about covering tracks. And it's not isolated. Fresh revelations from 2023 chats with another minor, a 16-year-old girl when David was 18, mirror this behavior. In those exchanges, leaked and gone viral amid the investigation, he shares photos of them together, discusses romantic encounters, and follows a similar script of flattery and escalation. What kind of coincidence is it that multiple underage girls end up in his orbit with evidence of physical relationships? This isn't a one-off mistake. It's a troubling tendency toward exploiting vulnerable teens, starting well before they can legally consent. Visual proof cements the closeness, with photos and videos capturing Celeste in David's world. One viral Instagram clip shows her backstage at an event, not as some random fan but intimately involved, laughing and posing in ways that scream couple vibes. Other snapshots reveal matching tattoos. Celeste's "she" on her right index finger with David's ink, a subtle but permanent marker of their tie. Even more explicit, reports confirm Celeste had David tattooed across her chest, a bold declaration of affection that David allegedly referenced in lyrics. In his track Lyrics, he alludes to Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest, turning what could be art into a chilling confession. Why ink someone's name if it's not a deep, possessive connection? And considering she got it while still a minor, under his influence, it begs the question, was this a symbol of love or control? Tweets from David in 2022 add another layer of suspicion, where he posts cryptic messages about not bringing her home to meet his mom and sister, quoting lines like, "Take me where I belong." Internet sleuths tie this directly to Celeste, given the timeline overlaps with their Discord exchanges. It's as if he's hinting at a secret relationship he knows is taboo, one that started when she was barely a teen. How else to explain the evasion? Combined with accounts from Celeste's family, like her mother reporting a boyfriend named David during missing person alerts, it forms a narrative of David luring her away from a troubled home life. Her ex-boyfriend even came forward recently, claiming Celeste spoke of running away and an unhappy family, making her ripe for manipulation by someone older and famous. This web of personal ties isn't just coincidental, it's predatory. The 2023 chats with the other minor, which surfaced in October 2025 in the patent scrutiny, show David repeating the pattern starting online, moving to meetups, and documenting it all. In one exchange, he compliments her looks, shares selfies, and hints at future plans, all while she's underage. What drives a rising star to risk everything on these liaisons? The deviance shines through in how he allegedly knew Celeste from as young as 11, per some accounts, building a friendship that morphed into romance by 12. Accusations of grooming flood online forums, with users pointing to his silence now, deleting social media posts, canceling tours as admission. Yet, the contradictions pile up. If it was innocent, why the cover-ups? These details don't just link David to Celeste, they expose a skewed attraction to youth that could have turned deadly when things went wrong. Adding fuel to this fire are persistent rumors that Celeste was pregnant at the time of her death. Whispers that emerged online shortly after her body was discovered, suggesting an even deeper level of intimacy and possible motive for foul play. Though her death certificate, revealed in late September 2025, officially debunked the pregnancy, stating she was not carrying a child when found, the rumor itself underscores the inappropriate nature of their relationship. One that started when she was far too young. Why would such speculation arise if there wasn't evidence of unprotected encounters hinted at in those leaked chats? Even debunked, it amplifies the deviance, painting David as someone who crossed lines repeatedly, potentially leading to a tragic outcome when complications arose. How could he claim ignorance when the patterns scream exploitation? The timeline and location evidence in this case scream David's deep involvement in Celeste's tragic end, with every date and spot aligning in a way that can't be dismissed as coincidence. Start with the car's abandonment. The Tesla Model Y, registered solely to David under his legal name David Anthony Burke, was left parked on a public street in Hollywood Hills, mere minutes from his rental home, for what authorities estimate was over a month. On August 27, 2025, an LAPD officer marked the tires, noting its position in violation of parking rules, yet no one, least of all David, reported it missing or moved it. Why would a rising star like him, with resources at his fingertips, ignore a high-end vehicle rotting on the street right outside his neighborhood? By September 3, it racked up a ticket for exceeding the 72-hour parking ordinance, and still silence from David. Then, on September 5, the car was towed to impound lot near Mansfield Avenue and Romaine Street in Hollywood, where it sat for just a few days before the foul odor alerted workers. That discovery on September 8, exactly one day after what would have been Celeste's 15th birthday, revealed her body in the frunk, wrapped in black plastic bags, having been dead for several weeks. Experts say she likely died in late July or early August, right around when David was wrapping up preparations for his tour kickoff on August 5 in Del Mar, California, a spot conveniently close to hometown of Lake Elsinore where Celeste was found, just 76 miles away. How convenient that her final days align with his presence in the area, and her body ends up in his car, parked like a forgotten prop near his doorstep. Neighbors in Hollywood Hills didn't report any strong smells initially, which suggests the body might have been placed in the frunk later, perhaps after the car was already parked there. But who had access to David's Tesla if not him? The vehicle wasn't stolen, it was simply abandoned, and David continued his life, performing on September 8 even as the discovery unfolded. That same month, on September 17, LAPD executed a search warrant at his Hollywood Hills rental, scouring for blood evidence and seizing electronics like computers, timing that dovetails exactly with Celeste's identification on September 17 or 18. Why raid his home the very day her identity is confirmed unless the dots connect straight back to him? And consider Celeste's history of running away. She vanished multiple times in 2024, February 15, March 19, April 5, with Riverside Campanies visiting her Lake Elsinore home 11 times between February 2024 and April 2025 for missing person reports. Each time, she returned after days or weeks, often texting friends she was safe. But her final disappearance around August 2024 lines up flawlessly with the car's abandonment and her estimated time of death. Surveillance video from March 2023 shows her fleeing home, and by 2024, photos place David just 0.3 miles from her residence, 6 minutes walk, hinting at direct access during her vulnerable periods. Was he the place she mentioned in messages only for it to turn deadly? Private investigator Steve Fisher's October 2025 update adds another layer, confirming an official sighting of Celeste alive in 2025 via photo evidence possibly from a mall in 2024 or early 2025. This extends her timeline beyond previous disappearances but still pins her death to the weeks before September 8, precisely when David was in Los Angeles gearing up for his tour. Fisher won't release the exact date to avoid tainting the investigation, but the image shows her safe and sound post-2024 runaways, only to end up deceased in David's vehicle shortly after. Why does every extension of her life story circle back to his orbit? Then there's the swatting incident on September 17 or 18 at his parents' Tess home in Hempstead, a fake 911 call reporting gunshots and a dead woman, complete with a distorted voice analyzed as using a changer. Body cam footage captures the confusion, with officers drawing guns and his parents denying any issue, even as the caller claims a female scream. This hoax hits right as Celeste is ID'd and his LA home is searched, perfect timing to distract or create chaos. And on September 18, David transfers ownership of 2 Texas properties including the swatted home, to his mother under the Thornrose Trust, echoing his EP title. These deeds, filed amid the investigation's heat, coincide with the body being released to Celeste's family on September 23. Is it mere chance that property shifts happen the day after a raid and ID confirmation, or a calculated move to shield assets from potential fallout? Celeste's ex-boyfriend's recent statements paint a picture of her unhappiness at home, mentioning she often spoke of running away, vulnerabilities that align with her 2024 disappearances and David's proximity. Deputies' repeated visits underscore a pattern of instability, yet her body surfaces in his car, far from Lake Elsinore but close to his world. The death certificate, revealed late September 2025, confirms no immediate cause, deferred pending toxicology, yet the week's dead estimate matches the car's stagnation. David's tour cancellation post-discovery, coupled with his silence, only amplifies the synchronicity. Why perform on the very day her body is found if not detached or aware? Online forums buzz with these overlaps, from eerie music blaring from the Tesla to the Frunk's use, uncommon for hiding but fitting for someone rushed or arrogant. P. Scott Williams notes the car parked several weeks, likely mirroring her time of death, and while no homicide ruling yet, the concealment alone screams culpability. Fisher's mall photo from 2024 shows her arguing on camera after a missing stint, alive but troubled, extending her story into 2025 yet ending in David's vehicle. Every thread, disappearances, car tickets, body release, property transfers, knots around him, making random chance improbable. The swatting call's audio, distorted and analyzed for voice changers, describes gunshots and a dead female, echoing Celeste's fate just as her ID hits. His parents' confusion on body cam, with siblings upstairs, adds personal stakes, timed impeccably post-raid. Transfers under a trust named after his music, too thematic for innocence. Celeste's vigils in Lake Elsinore contrast his quiet, but the dates don't lie. From her March 2023 surveillance run to 2025 sightings, her path intersects his at every turn, culminating in his Tesla. Why else the precise alignment unless he's central? For a larger viewpoint, the parallels between David's music and the grim details of Celeste's case paint him as far more than a bystander, with lyrics and themes that seem to confess or foreshadow his alleged role in her demise. Take Romantic Homicide, released on September 7, the exact date of Celeste's birthday. The music video depicts David dragging a lifeless body into a car's trunk, a chilling visual that mirrors how Celeste's remains were discovered in the frunk of his Tesla Model Y on September 8, 2025, just one day after what would have been her 15th birthday. In resurfaced interviews, David explains the song stems from a murderous alter ego, describing it as a figurative exploration of emotional violence and romance. But fans now dissect lines like, "I'm sick of waiting patiently for someone that won't even arrive," as potential nods to concealing a body left to rot for weeks. The track's viral success in 2022 coincided with the timeline of their reported relationship starting that year, when Celeste was only 12 or 13, fueling speculation that the homicide theme isn't mere artistry but a twisted reflection of real events. How else to explain the uncanny match between the video's corpse disposal and the actual discovery in his vehicle, especially when he claimed the lyrics aren't literal, yet the parallels scream otherwise. Adding to the accusations is the leaked unreleased track Celeste, which surfaced online shortly after her body was found, its title directly matching the victim's name and sending shockwaves through online forums. Lyrics explicitly reference Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest, aligning perfectly with reports of Celeste having David inked across her chest, a permanent mark of their bond. In one version that circulated on platforms like YouTube and TikTok, David sings, "Baby, baby, I love you, so this is what it's like to not need weed to get me high. I love it when you hold me when you cry, just know that I'm here for you." Evoking an intimate, comforting dynamic that echoes leaked Discord chats from 2022-2023, where he allegedly discussed sexual encounters with her at such a young age. A more disturbing leaked snippet includes undressing her and getting her pregnant, tying into debunked but persistent rumors of Celeste's pregnancy at death, as noted in her certificate, though the whispers originated from these very lyrics. Fans point to lines like, "I thought you said you didn't want no kids," as a direct confession, especially given the sexual undertones matching their underage relationship. The song was reportedly performed at shows before the case exploded, but post-leak, David faced claims of scrubbing social media posts about it, as if erasing evidence. In one viral TikTok analysis, users recounted how he demanded mods delete a livestream where Celeste exposed their dynamic, joking about Epstein files, yet this track survived long enough to leak, begging the question, was it a love song or a hidden admission of coercion and consequence? Even David's EP, Petals to Thorns, weaves into the accusations, with its themes of love turning toxic mirroring the dark turn in Celeste's story. The project's title inspired the Thorn Rose Trust, under which he held 2 Texas properties before transferring them to his mother. The EP's exploration of heartbreak and betrayal, released in 2023 amid their ongoing connection, includes motifs of wilting romance that fans now link to her decomposed state. Why name a legal trust after his music if not to blend his artistic persona with real-life maneuvers, especially when the transfers coincided with LAP raiding his LA home for blood evidence? Online sleuths on Reddit and X dissected how the EP's narrative of petals, meaning innocent love to thorns, meaning painful end, parallels grooming a young girl only for it to culminate in tragedy. Combined with his Scrap Deluxe album, Withered, halted alongside cancelled tours post-discovery, the word withered evokes decomposition, much like marcescine, another track promoted around September 7, hinting at marcescence, the botanical term for lingering decay. In leak sessions, David reportedly freestyled lines about obsession and loss, but his silence now, deleting posts and avoiding statements, only amplifies the suspicion. What artist cancels everything if their work isn't suddenly under a microscope for incriminating echoes? The patterns aren't subtle. These songs don't just coincide, they indict. Despite the damning evidence stacking against David and Celeste's tragic demise, a persistent theory posits that he's the victim of an elaborate frame job, orchestrated by unknown adversaries to pin the blame on him amid his rising fame. Proponents argue that the car's public abandonment for weeks, complete with parking tickets and no reported theft, was too blatantly obvious for David to have orchestrated himself, suggesting a setup by someone with access to the vehicle and knowledge of his personal life. The theory gained traction by emphasizing inconsistencies, like the lack of an immediate odor from the car, implying the body was planted later to ensure discovery tied directly to him. The origins of this theory trace back to online discussions immediately following the body's discovery, sprouting from fan communities and amateur investigators who rallied to defend David amid mounting accusations. It first bubbled up on platforms like X and TikTok around September 9, 2025, just a day after the impound lot revelation, with users posting threads questioning why a savvy celebrity would leave such damning evidence in plain sight. One early X post on September 19 claimed the Tesla was stolen and David framed, citing shared access among friends as a vulnerability exploited by enemies. By mid-September, the idea spread rapidly as details of the swatting emerged, with podcasters and YouTubers like those on Reporter Room amplifying it in live streams, asking if David was being targeted or framed. Former FBI agent Colin Schmidt, in a Banfield interview shortly after, described the timing as weird, but possible, though he leaned toward it being improbable, which only fueled online debates. The context in which the theory began circulating was one of intense public scrutiny and polarized fan reactions, as David's young audience grappled with the shock of his potential involvement. Starting in fan Discord servers and Reddit threads dedicated to his music, supporters latched onto the framed angle to counter grooming allegations from leaked chats, insisting his relationship with Celeste was consensual and that rivals, perhaps from the music industry or online trolls, engineered the tragedy. By late September, mainstream outlets explored it in timelines. On October 5, a post accusing someone else of framing him went viral, complete with photos, illustrating how the theory evolved from defensive speculation to a full narrative. Influencers on TikTok created videos dissecting evidence of a setup, like the voice-changed 911 audio, arguing it was too sophisticated for random harassment. This backdrop of social media frenzy, where hashtags like DavidFrame trended, transformed the theory from niche chatter to a widespread defense mechanism, even as investigators remained silent on suspects. Firstly, the hypothesis that David was set up often hinges on the claim that his manager, Josh Marshall, was arrested and positioned as the possible mastermind behind a scheme to plant evidence and shift blame onto the singer. Proponents of this theory argue that Marshall's proximity to David's affairs, including handling logistics like vehicle access and property rentals, made him capable of orchestrating such a deception, perhaps to cover his own tracks or exploit the situation for undisclosed reasons. This line of thinking posits that an arrest would validate Marshall as the true culprit, diverting scrutiny from David and portraying the artist as an unwitting victim in a convoluted plot. However, a thorough examination reveals no credible evidence supporting any arrest of Josh Marshall in connection to the case. Law enforcement agencies, including the Los Angeles Police Department, have not issued any statements confirming his detention, charges, or even formal questioning as a suspect. Reports suggesting federal agents apprehended Marshall, sometimes accompanied by sensational claims of leaked footage showing him involved in abduction scenarios, originate from unverified online videos and lack substantiation from official sources. For instance, such videos often carry disclaimers admitting their content may include gossip, rumors, or exaggerated portrayals, explicitly warning viewers that not all information presented is factual or verified. These narratives frequently recycle vague reports, without naming specific authorities or providing documentation, rendering them unreliable as proof of an arrest. Instead, the focus of the investigation continues to revolve around David's registered Tesla and related properties, with no shifts indicating Marshall as a primary figure. Josh Marshall, the founder of Mogul Vision record label and David's manager for approximately 4 years, has actively refuted any involvement through public statements that emphasize his detachment from the events. In comments confirmed to outlets like Los Angeles Magazine and E! News, Marshall declared he had zero knowledge of anything related to Celeste Hernandez's disappearance or death. He detailed his professional setup, explaining that he works remotely 95% of the time from his home outside California, where he lives full-time with his wife and 3 children, including a 14-year-old daughter. This lifestyle, he asserted, limits his day-to-day interactions with clients like David to minimal levels. As a larger team handles routine operations, Marshall's role primarily involves higher-level management through interscope records, not constant physical presence or oversight of personal matters. He stressed that this arrangement means he was not positioned to harbor anyone or facilitate hidden activities, directly countering implications that he enabled or concealed illicit behavior. One specific allegation Marshall addressed involves purported emails from Rivas Hernandez's family in early 2024, claiming she was missing and believed to be staying with David or associated parties. A private investigator had alleged that concerned loved ones sent such correspondence to Marshall, attaching a missing persons report and flyer noting her age as 12 or 13 at the time. However, Marshall categorically denied ever receiving any emails, stating outright that no such communications reached him. He further clarified that he is no one's roommate and does not maintain residences in California for himself, debunking suggestions that the Hollywood Hills property he leased served as a site for harboring the teen. This denial aligns with records showing Rivas Hernandez briefly returned home one day after the alleged email date, only to go missing again in April 2024 from Lake Elsinore, California. Authorities from the Riverside County Sheriff's Office confirmed she was reported missing at least 3 times that year, but no links to Marshall surfaced in those reports. The Hollywood Hills home itself provides additional context that weakens the mastermind narrative. Leased by Marshall in February 24 for $20,000 per month, the 4-bedroom property, valued at around $3.6 million, was intended as a rental for David during his time in Los Angeles. The homeowner, Mladen Trifunovic, revealed he was unaware of David's occupancy until after the police raid, having been informed only that Marshall was the lessee. On September 17, 2025, LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division executed a search warrant at the residence, removing several bags of evidence, including electronics like computers and devices that could contain digital records. Following the raid, Marshall promptly requested to terminate the lease, citing the invasive circumstances and their impact on privacy. Trifunovic noted that Marshall began removing items immediately, with moving trucks arriving shortly thereafter to fully vacate the premises. This action, while abrupt, appears as a practical response to the disruption rather than an admission of guilt or an attempt to evade justice. Importantly, the search yielded no immediate arrests or charges against Marshall, and police have not indicated any findings implicating him beyond his managerial ties to David. Further eroding the arrest claim is the absence of any motive for Marshall to frame his own client. As a seasoned manager who has guided David's career from early stages to mainstream success, including affiliations with Interscope Records, Marshall's professional interests align closely with the artist's reputation and viability. Orchestrating a frame-up would not only jeopardize David's tour schedules and music releases, evidenced by the cancellation of U.S. dates amid the investigation, but also tarnish Marshall's own standing in the industry. He has expressed genuine sympathy for Rivas Hernandez's family, describing the news as tragic and hoping authorities resolve it swiftly based on facts. In his statements, Marshall urged media and observers to prioritize verified information over speculation, highlighting how unfounded accusations have emotionally strained his family. This stance portrays him as a concerned professional and father, not a scheming architect of deception. Adding to the counterarguments, official updates from the LAPD underscore that the investigation remains open without pinpointing Marshall. The medical examiner deferred the cause and manner of death as of September 17, 2025, listing it simply as occurring in a vehicle on September 8, the discovery date, while noting the body had been deceased for several weeks, wrapped in a plastic bag and severely decomposed. Authorities clarified there is no clear criminal culpability beyond possible concealment, and Rivas Hernandez was not pregnant, ruling out certain speculated scenarios. The Tesla, abandoned on Bluebird Avenue near the rented home, was ticketed for exceeding 72-hour parking limits before being impounded on September 5, where tow yard employees detected the odor leading to the find. Neighbors reported the vehicle being relocated multiple times over prior months, but no witness accounts tie Marshall directly to these movements. A found Tesla key fob near the property was turned over to police, yet it has not led to charges against him. Marshall's transparency extends to addressing broader rumors, such as his supposed silence initially fueling suspicion. He broke that silence deliberately, labeling it the only time he would speak on the matter for now, to correct misinformation affecting innocent lives. He dared accusers to present facts, emphasizing the harm of baseless claims, especially as a parent navigating the fallout. This response, coupled with his confirmation of the statement's authenticity to reputable publications, bolsters his credibility. Meanwhile, David's cooperation with authorities, through his spokesperson, includes providing access to records, further shifting the lens away from a framing plot. The lack of any forensic or digital evidence publicly linking Marshall to the vehicle or body concealment reinforces that the mastermind theory is unsubstantiated. Beside the role of the manager, the hypothesis suggesting that Celeste died from an overdose of controlled substances, possibly forced or set up to mimic suicide before her body was placed in David's Tesla, relies heavily on speculative interpretations. Supporters point to the presence of these substances in her system as evidence of external manipulation, with the code XV489120 from More Dance video allegedly matching a chemical identifier for a specific substance, framing it as a planted clue to incriminate him. However, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's autopsy results confirm the detection of the substance, but the cause of death remains deferred, which were wrapped in a plastic bag and had been deceased for several weeks when discovered on September 8, 2025. There are no forensic indicators of coercion, such as unusual injection sites, defensive wounds, or residues suggesting forced ingestion, which would be expected in a setup involving foul play. The suspicious substance often appears in cases of recreational or self-medicated use, particularly among individuals with unstable living situations. Celeste had a documented history of running away from home multiple times in 2024 and 2025, reported missing at least 3 instances by the Riverside County Sheriff's Office, including disappearances from Lake Elsinore, California, which could have exposed her to environments where access to such substances was unregulated or self-administered without any elaborate conspiracy required. This pattern aligns with tragic but unfortunately common scenarios involving vulnerable teens, where personal choices or accidental overuse lead to fatal outcomes, rather than an orchestrated plot to frame someone else. The notion of a setup demands a level of premeditation and access that lacks supporting evidence, as no witnesses or records indicate third-party involvement in administering the drugs. Furthermore, the X549120 code in the One More Dance music video, released prior to the discovery, is more plausibly a creative element or coincidental reference rather than a deliberate clue in a framing scheme. Music videos often incorporate cryptic numbers, symbols, or Easter eggs for artistic effect, fan engagement, or thematic depth, without implying real-world criminal intent. In this case, while the code bears resemblance to a PubChem identifier for noroxicodone, there is no verified connection proving it was plant evidence against David. Such interpretations stem from hindsight bias after the toxicology report surfaced. Conversely, David's earlier works provide material that analysts view as potentially self-incriminating, such as the lyrics in his songs. These artistic choices, created well before the body was found, indicate David may have been drawing from his own experiences or relationships, undermining the idea that someone else embedded clues to frame him. If a setup were in play, it would require a mastermind with intimate knowledge of David's creative process to retroactively align such details, yet no such figure has emerged in the investigation. Instead, statements from David's associates reveal that Celeste was acknowledged as his girlfriend, albeit with claims they were unaware of her true age, which was 15 at the time of her death. Back to the connection to the use of substance and David, the playlist, accessible through mutual accounts, included tracks that echoed the emotional turmoil in David's music, suggesting a dynamic where the substance use might have occurred consensually or accidentally during their time together, without needing an external actor to gay the situation. The deferred cause of death also rules out immediate assumptions of homicide via overdose, as factors like environmental exposure, underlying health issues, or even natural decomposition could influence toxicology interpretations, making the setup theory reliant on unproven leaps rather than concrete forensics. Shifting to the claim that the Tesla was abandoned with a key fob nearby, making it vulnerable to theft or exploitation for planting the body, combined with assertions that evidence is merely circumstantial and lacks direct ties, this too fails to hold as proof of a frame job. The vehicle, registered to David under his legal name David Anthony Burke, was left on Bluebird Avenue in Hollywood Hills, a street adjacent to the luxury rental property he occupied at the time, leased for $20,000 per month through his management. Neighbors reported the Tesla being moved repeatedly in the area over the preceding months, accumulating parking tickets for exceeding 72-hour limits before it was towed to an impound lot on September 5, 2025, where employees noticed a foul odor leading to the discovery 3 days later. The key fob found discarded nearby suggests not a setup for theft, but rather an intentional abandonment by someone familiar with the car, possibly to delay detection while hoping the impound process would obscure origins. If this were a framing attempt, the perpetrator would have needed exclusive access to the Tesla without alerting David or his team, yet records show the vehicle was under his control, with no reports of it being stolen or borrowed. The Los Angeles Police Department's Robbery Homicide Division executed a search warrant at the Hollywood Hills home on September 17, 2025, removing multiple bags of evidence, including computers, phones, and other electronics that could hold digital traces like location data or communications. This raid, conducted just days after the identification of the remains as Celeste on September 18, underscores the property's centrality to the probe, with the homeowner Mladen Trifunovic confirming he was unaware of David's tenancy until informed by authorities, and noting that the lease was abruptly terminated shortly after, with moving trucks clearing out belongings. Such actions point to efforts to distance from the scene rather than victimization by an external plotter. Evidence extends beyond the circumstantial, with photographic documentation from outlets like TMZ capturing David in proximity to areas where Celeste was known to frequent before her disappearance, including regions near Lake Elsinore and Los Angeles. Allegations have surfaced that David may have compensated individuals to conceal Celeste's underage status, allowing her to integrate into a social circle under false pretenses, which ties him directly to her presence in his orbit. And as mentioned, the matching tattoos on both David and Celeste serve as a tangible link, symbolizing perhaps a shared secret or bond, documented in images that predate the discovery and align with descriptions from her family. An old livestream video from David's early career shows a girl resembling Celeste in the background, interacting casually in what appears to be a domestic setting, further establishing a personal connection that predates any alleged framing. The body itself showed no signs of dismemberment, contrary to initial rumors, and the absence of external interference, like tampered Tesla cameras, indicates the concealment was liked by someone with legitimate access, not a stranger disabling systems. Uppity has stated there is insufficient evidence to name a suspect, but the investigation's emphasis on David includes scrutiny of his van, which bore a license plate with references echoing Celeste's name, adding another layer of personal association. The decomposition timeline, estimating death weeks prior, aligns with Celeste's last confirmed sighting in April 2025, during which David was active in Los Angeles, providing opportunity for revivement without necessitating a third-party setup. These elements collectively refute the indirect evidence narrative, as the web of connections, from property proximity to shared symbols and digital interactions, forms a direct trail that a framing scheme would struggle to fabricate without David's complicity or awareness. The abandonment of the Tesla, rather than a clever plant, appears as a panicked attempt to dispose of evidence, especially given its location near his residence and the subsequent raid yielding potential digital proofs. Without concrete signs of unauthorized access or motive for an outsider, the argument for a frame via the vehicle dissolves into speculation, overshadowed by indicators of intimate involvement. The alibi drawn from David's international tour schedule, claiming he was performing in Europe and Asia when the body was found on September 8, 2025, does not exonerate him from prior actions, as it only covers the discovery moment, not the estimated time of death weeks earlier. Celeste's remains were in advanced decomposition, consistent with her having died around late spring or early summer 2025, following her final reported disappearance in April from Lake Elsinore, a period when David was based in Los Angeles and not yet on tour. This window allowed ample time for any concealment before his departure, with travel records showing he left for overseas dates only after key events could have transpired. The tour itself, part of promoting his music catalog, included stops in major cities like London, Paris, and Tokyo, but David canceled subsequent U.S. legs amid the investigation, a move that included rescheduling or scrapping domestic shows to cooperate with authorities, signaling personal stakes rather than the detachment of a framed innocent. During the investigation period, David continued casual activities like playing Fortnite, logging sessions that could be traced for alibis, but also interpreted as attempts to maintain normalcy amid stress, not innocence. Other evidence, such as a shared Discord server where Celeste participated under a falsified age of 18 or older, reveals interactions predating the tour, with chat logs including David's jests about sensitive topics like Epstein-related files, hinting at a comfort level with controversial themes that extended into real-life associations. Photographs place him near Celeste's known areas, reinforcing a prolonged relationship that spanned months before his international commitments, effectively nullifying the alibi for the critical pre-tour phase. A private investigator, Steve Fisher, has presented images suggesting Celeste was alive into 2025, potentially seen in Los Angeles environments linked to David, which extends the timeline of their possible contact and challenges any claim that his absence abroad shields him from involvement. Celeste's ex-boyfriend has spoken publicly about her patterns of running away in relationships, providing context that her connections were personal and voluntary, not fabricated by a framer exploiting David's schedule. Her funeral, held a month after discovery, organized via GoFundMe by family friends Esmeralda Lozano and Giselle Hernandez, emphasized her youth and the family's grief, but no statements implicated a setup, focusing instead on seeking justice through official channels. The alignment of these events, transfers, and swatting on pivotal dates suggests proactive measures in response to unfolding scrutiny, not the surprise of a victimized celebrity. The tour alibi, therefore, crumbles when viewed against this backdrop of pre-departure ties and post-discovery actions, illustrating opportunity for earlier involvement without reliance on an absent frame artist's exploitation. With the accumulating evidence painting a picture of David's deep entanglement in the circumstances surrounding the tragedy, it becomes evident that he possessed not only the means and opportunity, but also the motive to orchestrate events in a way that could shield him from accountability. The pattern of behavior exhibited through unusual maneuvers, such as the fabricated 911 call leading to the swatting of his family's Texas residence, aligns too conveniently with strategies employed by individuals seeking to manipulate public perception and investigative focus. This call, which falsely reported gunfire and a deceased victim at the Hempstead home on September 18, 2025, prompted an immediate law enforcement response, complete with drawn weapons and a thorough sweep of the property. Yet, the swift determination that it was a hoax, cleared in under 20 minutes with no incident report filed, raises questions about its true purpose. Rather than a random act of malice from an external troll, the timing and execution suggest a calculated diversion, designed to portray David as a persecuted figure amid mounting scrutiny. By invoking such chaos, he could foster sympathy, implying that unseen enemies were at work, thereby diluting the narrative of his culpability and directing attention toward supposed harassers. The use of a voice-altering device in the call further bolsters this interpretation, as it indicates premeditation and access to tools that could obscure the caller's identity, potentially allowing David or an associate to execute it without immediate traceability. Audio from the dispatch reveals a distorted voice claiming to have heard gunshots and screams, elements that mirror sensationalized details from the ongoing probe, almost as if crafted to echo the very accusations leveled against him. This mimicry could serve to create a meta layer of confusion, making authorities question the reliability of tips and reports while buying time for legal preparations. Indeed, the swatting coincided precisely with other strategic actions, including the transfer of property ownership to his mother on the same day, suggesting a broader effort to insulate assets and family from potential fallout. Such synchronization implies not victimhood but authorship, where the incident functions as a smokescreen to humanize David in the eyes of supporters and media, framing him as besieged rather than suspect. In this light, the event transforms from an isolated prank into a piece of a larger puzzle, where David leverages the chaos to generate favorable optics, perhaps even soliciting public outrage over privacy invasions to counterbalance the weight of investigative pressure. Beyond the immediate distraction, these odd tactics reveal a mindset attuned to narrative control, common among those with something to conceal. By instigating or facilitating such disruptions, David could indirectly influence the direction of inquiries, prompting law enforcement to allocate resources toward tracing the caller, instead of delving deeper into his own activities. Reports indicate the Waller County District Attorney's Office released body camera footage showing deputies' urgent arrival, only to encounter bewildered family members who reiterated that, "Someone is messing with us." A phrase that, in retrospect, could be reherplify the victim narrative. The absence of any follow-up charges or identifications of the perpetrator, despite the sophistication involved, hints at barriers to tracing, possibly intentional dead ends created by the originator. This aligns with patterns seen in high-profile cases where individuals under siege employ proxies or technology to fabricate threats, thereby shifting the spotlight and cultivating doubt about the core allegations. Moreover, the emotional toll on his family, as captured in the footage with his mother's concerns about intruders, could be exploited to garner empathy, positioning David as a protective son caught in a web of unfounded attacks rather than the architect of deception. Ultimately, these peculiar moods underscore a proactive defense mechanism, where David not only anticipates scrutiny but actively shapes it to his advantage. The swatting, far from random, emerges as a self-inflicted wound intended to heal his image, diverting investigative energy and planting seeds of reasonable doubt in the public domain. As the probe evolves, this interpretation gains traction, revealing how such anomalies are less about external malice and more about internal strategy, solidifying the case for his capacity to manipulate outcomes in pursuit of self-preservation. In weighing these elements, the logical conclusion points to David's hand in engineering distractions, transforming potential vulnerabilities into tools for evasion and reinforcing the overarching narrative of his potential guilt through cunning redirection. Despite serious suspicions surrounding David in connection with the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, he has not been arrested or formally charged as of October 2025, prompting debates about whether his celebrity status shields him from swift legal consequences. The Los Angeles Police Department has publicly tied him to the case due to the discovery of the victim's body in his registered Tesla, alongside other circumstantial evidence pointing to a prior relationship. Yet, the absence of an arrest has fueled speculation that his fame as a rising music star, known for hits like Romantic Homicide, and a substantial following from his Fortnite streaming days, grants him preferential treatment. Critics argue that the lack of immediate action, such as detainment for questioning or restrictions on his movements, suggests a hesitancy to pursue a high-profile figure, especially when compared to cases involving non-celebrities, where arrests often occur based on less direct evidence. This perception is heightened by David's continued public activities, such as gaming online and managing his career through Interscope Records, without apparent constraints, raising questions about whether his wealth and influence are delaying justice. The ongoing investigation, now handled by LAP's Robbery Homicide Division, has not progressed to naming a suspect, which some interpret as a deliberate stall to protect public image or industry affiliations, while others see it as a reflection of procedural caution in a complex case. The LAPD and the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office have provided explanations for the lack of arrests, emphasizing the absence of definitive evidence required to justify charges. The official stance is that the cause and manner of death remain deferred, due to the advanced decomposition of the remains, which were found wrapped in a plastic bag in the Tesla's trunk on September 8, 2025, after weeks of being deceased. Toxicology reports confirmed the presence of neuroxycodone and oxycodone, but without a conclusive determination of homicide, accident, or suicide, authorities cannot establish criminal culpability. Former FBI agent Bobby Chacon, commenting on NewsNation, clarified that California law requires a clear manner of death, such as homicide, to proceed with murder charges, and the current evidence only supports potential lesser charges like concealment of a body, which still demands robust proof of intent. The LAPD has underscored that their investigation is thorough, involving a search warrant executed on September 17, 2025, at David's Hollywood rental, where electronics like phones and computers were seized for forensic analysis. These devices could yield critical data, such as location pings or communications, but processing them takes time, especially given the need to cross-reference with other evidence like the Tesla's logs or property records. The department insists that no one, including David, has been named a suspect because the evidence remains circumstantial, lacking direct forensic links like DNA or video tying him to the act of death or concealment. David's cooperation, facilitated through his high-profile legal team, has allowed him to avoid detention while investigators build their case, a process that aligns with standard protocol but appears unusually prolonged to some observers. Several aspects of the investigation raise suspicions about whether the lack of an arrest reflects more than just procedural rigor. The prolonged deferral of the cause of death, despite toxicology results being available, is seen by some as atypical, as similar cases involving non-public figures often see quicker resolutions or at least temporary detentions based on circumstantial links like vehicle ownership. The Tesla, registered to David, was abandoned on Bluebird Avenue near his $20,000 per month rental, accumulating parking tickets before being towed, yet no immediate action followed its discovery, even though the body's presence directly implicated the owner. The search warrant's execution, while significant, yielded no public updates on findings, which contrasts with cases where authorities typically share preliminary results to quell public concern. This silence fuels speculation that external pressures, possibly from the music industry or David's legal resources, are influencing the pace. His retention of attorneys previously associated with Harvey Weinstein's defense adds to this perception, as their involvement suggests access to legal strategies that can delay or complicate proceedings, a luxury less available to non-celebrities. Furthermore, the timing of certain events, such as the transfer of 2 Texas properties from David's Thornrose Trust to his mother on September 18, 2025, the same day Celeste was identified, coincides suspiciously with heightened investigative activity, hinting at preemptive asset protection that could indicate foreknowledge of legal risks. The swatting incident at his family's Texas home on the same date, involving a false 911 call reporting gunfire and a deceased woman, was resolved in under 20 minutes with no charges or suspect identified, which some view as an unusually swift dismissal for such a serious hoax, potentially pointing to a desire to avoid further scrutiny of David's circle. Another point of contention is the LAP's public statement that no person of interest exists, despite David's clear connections to the case, including allegations of a prior relationship with Celeste, supported by matching tattoos and shared digital interactions like a Spotify playlist. In non-celebrity cases, such links often prompt at least formal questioning under custody, yet David remains free to continue his routines, including online gaming sessions that have drawn public ire for their perceived nonchalance. Legal analysts, like those on Vanity Fair's coverage, note that high-profile cases often face additional scrutiny to avoid premature arrests that could be challenged in court, but the extended timeline here, over a month since the body's discovery, strikes some as disproportionate. The involvement of Interscope Records, a major label backing David, adds another layer of suspicion, as the music industry has a history of shielding artists to preserve commercial interests, as seen in delayed actions against figures like R. Kelly before concrete evidence forced accountability. The absence of restrictions on David's movements, coupled with his ability to cancel U.S. tour dates without immediate legal repercussions, suggests to critics a level of leniency that might not extend to an ordinary individual facing similar circumstances. The handling of the investigation also draws scrutiny for its perceived inconsistencies. For instance, the Tesla's key fob, found near the abandoned vehicle, was turned over to police, but no reports confirm whether it provided actionable leads, such as fingerprints or usage logs, which could clarify who last accessed the car. The vehicle's cameras, typically active in Teslas, were reportedly disabled or non-functional, a detail that raises questions about whether this was deliberate and why it hasn't led to closer examination of the owner. The Hollywood Hills property, leased through David's manager Josh Marshall, was vacated shortly after the search, with moving trucks removing belongings, yet no arrests followed despite the home's proximity to the Tesla's final location. These gaps in public updates contrast with cases where authorities often provide interim statements to maintain transparency, leading some to speculate that David's status affords him a buffer. The swatting call, with its distorted voice and specific claims mirroring case details, could be interpreted as an attempt to divert attention, yet its quick resolution without deeper investigation into potential connections to David or his associates adds to perceptions of selective enforcement. While the LAP insists on needing airtight evidence, the prolonged lack of action, combined with David's continued freedom and high-powered legal defense, amplifies suspicions that his celebrity status is providing a shield, allowing him to navigate the investigation with advantages unavailable to less prominent individuals. Comparisons between the case involving David and other high-profile legal battles involving celebrities reveal a pattern that fuels speculation about preferential treatment due to fame and wealth. One prominent case often cited is that of Sean Diddy Combs, who faced allegations of mistreatment and trafficking over several years before his arrest in September 2024 on federal charges. Like David's, remained free for an extended period despite mounting accusations, with law enforcement citing the need for airtight evidence before acting. In Com's case, the delay was attributed to the complexity of building a federal racketeering and trafficking case, requiring extensive wiretaps, witness testimonies, and financial records. Critics argue that this prolonged investigative phase allowed Combs to continue his public life, including hosting events and releasing music, much like David's ability to engage in activities such as playing Fortnite during the ongoing probe. The similarities lie in the public perception that both individuals, as influential figures in the entertainment industry, benefited from a slower judicial process, which some attribute to their status and resources. For instance, Combs' legal team, backed by significant financial means, was able to delay immediate repercussions, a tactic mirrored by David's retention of high-profile attorneys previously associated with Harvey Weinstein's defense. This parallel suggests that wealth enables access to elite legal representation, which can extend the pre-arrest phase by challenging evidence or negotiating cooperation terms, a luxury less available to non-celebrities facing similar accusations. Another comparable case is that of Harvey Weinstein, whose legal battles over assault allegations spanned years before his 2020 conviction. Weinstein's case is particularly relevant because David reportedly hired the same legal team, known for its aggressive defense strategies and success in delaying or mitigating charges for high-profile clients. Weinstein remained free years after initial accusations surfaced in 2017, with his legal team leveraging media influence, financial settlements, and procedural challenges to postpone arrests. Critics point out that Weinstein's status as a Hollywood mogul allowed him to manipulate public narratives and secure favorable conditions, such as remaining on bail during early investigations. Similarly, David's lack of detention despite the discovery of a body in his registered Tesla vehicle raises questions about whether his rising fame, bolstered by hits like Romantic Homicide and a global fanbase, affords him leniency. In non-celebrity cases, such as those involving missing teens in Riverside County, suspects are often detained swiftly based on circumstantial evidence like vehicle ownership or proximity to the victim. For example, in a 2023 Riverside County case, a local man was arrested within days of a teen's disappearance, based solely on witness accounts placing him near the scene, a stark contrast to David's continued freedom, despite tangible links like the Tesla and alleged personal interactions with the victim. This discrepancy feeds the narrative that celebrity status creates a protective shield, allowing figures like David to avoid immediate consequences while investigations drag on, ostensibly to avoid premature reputational damage to a valuable public figure. A further point of comparison arises with the case of R. Kelly, whose allegations of misconduct with minors persisted for decades before his 2019 arrest. Kelly's ability to evade legal repercussions for so long was widely attributed to his influence as a music icon, with record labels and industry insiders allegedly shielding him to protect financial interests. Like David, Kelly faced accusations involving underage individuals, yet his wealth and fame allowed him to maintain a public career, including touring and media appearances, until overwhelming evidence, such as video footage and victim testimonies, forced action. The parallel with David lies in the perception that affiliation with Interscope Records, a major label with significant sway in the music industry, might be influencing the pace of the investigation. Reports indicate that David's management, tied to Interscope, has been proactive in managing his public image, issuing statements about his cooperation with authorities and emphasizing the lack of formal charges. This mirrors strategies used in Kelly's case where public relations efforts downplayed allegations to preserve marketability. In contrast, lesser-known individuals in similar situations, such as a 2022 Los Angeles case where a non-celebrity was arrested for concealing a body in a vehicle, often face swift detention without the buffer of industry backing or high-powered legal teams. The disparity underscores the belief that David's status as a young, marketable artist grants him a degree of insulation, delaying actions that would typically follow in cases with comparable evidence. Public criticism of David's continued freedom has been intense, focusing on the perceived injustice of a celebrity evading accountability, while a young girl's family seeks answers. The discovery of the victim's body in David's Tesla, combined with allegations of an inappropriate relationship, has fueled outrage that no arrests have been made despite these tangible connections. Critics argue that the Los Angeles Police Department's to designate David as a suspect or person of interest, even after executing a search warrant at his Hollywood Hills rental on September 17, 2025 and seizing electronics, reflects a hesitancy to confront a high-profile figure. The raid, which involved the Robbery Homicide Division removing computers and devices that could contain critical digital evidence like location data or communications, has not yet led to charges, prompting accusations that authorities are treading lightly to avoid antagonizing David's fanbase or his label's influence. Commentators have noted that the police's public stance of "no suspects" feels incongruous with the gravity of finding a decomposed body in a celebrity's vehicle, especially when coupled with reports of matching tattoos and a shared Spotify playlist suggesting a personal relationship. This perception is amplified by David's ability to maintain a low profile, continuing casual activities like gaming, which critics interpret as a lack of accountability that only fame could enable. The contrast between his freedom and the family's grief, expressed through a GoFundMe organized funeral in October 2025, underscores the public's frustration that justice appears stalled for those without celebrity status. The money talks narrative further dominates public discourse, with David's financial resources seen as a key factor in his prolonged freedom. His hiring of a legal team previously associated with Harvey Weinstein's defense has drawn significant scrutiny, as such attorneys are known for their ability to delay proceedings through motions, negotiations, and public relations strategies. Critics point out that David's wealth, derived from his music career and earlier success as a Fortnite streamer, allows him to afford this caliber of representation, which can challenge evidence admissibility or push for extended discovery periods. For example, the transfer of 2 Texas properties from his Thorn Rose Trust to his mother on September 18, 2025, the same day the victim was identified and a swatting incident occurred at the family home, has been interpreted as a strategic move to shield assets from potential civil lawsuits or asset freezes. This financial maneuvering, combined with his ability to cancel U.S. tour dates without immediate career collapse, suggests a level of privilege inaccessible to ordinary individuals, who might face quicker detention or asset scrutiny in similar circumstances. Media outlets have highlighted how such actions reflect a calculated effort to mitigate legal risks, with one report noting that David's cooperation with authorities, facilitated through his attorneys, allows him to avoid direct questioning while maintaining a public facade of innocence. This dynamic echoes sentiments in the Weinstein and Combs cases, where financial clout enabled prolonged pre-arrest phases, fueling accusations that money buys time and leniency in the justice system. Public outrage also centers on the perceived mishandling of the investigation, with critics arguing that the Los Angeles Police Department has been overly cautious, possibly due to David's prominence. The swatting incident at his family's Texas home, where a fabricated 911 call reported gunfire and a deceased woman, was resolved swiftly without charges, but some see it as a deliberate distraction to paint David as a victim of harassment. The call's timing, coinciding with the property transfer and the Hollywood Hills raid, raises suspicions that it was orchestrated to garner sympathy and divert attention from the core allegations. Unlike typical cases where such incidents lead to aggressive tracing of perpetrators, the lack of follow-up suggests a reluctance to probe too deeply, possibly to avoid further entangling a celebrity figure. Media reports have drawn parallels to cases like that of a 2021 Los Angeles murder suspect, a non-celebrity who was arrested within weeks of a body being found in his vehicle based solely on ownership and witness statements. The disparity in treatment, swift action for an unknown individual versus prolonged investigation for David, amplifies claims that his status as a Gen Z music star with a global following influences the pace and intensity of the probe. Outlets like NewsNation and Vanity Fair have questioned whether the entertainment industry's influence, particularly through powerful labels like Interscope, contributes to this hesitancy, noting that premature action against a rising star could disrupt lucrative contracts and fan-driven revenue streams. The production of a true crime documentary, while the investigation remains active, has further inflamed public criticism, as it suggests a rush to capitalize on the case's notoriety rather than prioritizing justice. Announced in early October 2025, the documentary aims to explore the circumstances of the victim's death, yet its development before any arrests has been seen as evidence of the entertainment industry's willingness to exploit David's fame for profit, potentially softening public perception by framing the narrative ambiguously. Critics argue that this move, combined with David's continued public activities, creates an impression of untouchability, where his celebrity status allows him to weather allegations that would have led to immediate detention for others. The documentary's timing, juxtaposed with the family's ongoing grief, evident in their fundraising efforts for a funeral, highlights a perceived disconnect, where the industry appears to protect its own while ordinary families face delays in resolution. This sentiment is compounded by the fact that David's legal team has issued statements emphasizing his cooperation and the lack of charges, a tactic that mirrors those used by other celebrities to maintain public goodwill during scandals. The public's frustration is palpable, with many pointing to the stark contrast between the rapid arrests in non-celebrity cases, such as a 2024 San Bernardino case where a suspect was detained within days of a similar discovery, and the ongoing freedom of David, whose case remains unresolved despite months of investigation. Another layer of criticism focuses on the broader systemic issues highlighted by David's case, where the intersection of fame, wealth, and youth culture appears to create a protective bubble. Unlike typical suspects, David's ability to retreat from public performances while maintaining a digital presence, such as gaming or subtle social media activity, suggests a confidence in evading immediate repercussions, which critics attribute to his status as a marketable artist. This mirrors the experience of figures like Chris Brown, who faced allegations of violence in 2009, but continued his career with minimal disruption due to industry support and fan loyalty. In David's case, his affiliation with Interscope and a dedicated fan base, particularly among Gen Z audiences, provides a buffer that non-celebrities lack, as evidenced by a 2023 Orange County case where a suspect for a lesser offense based on vehicle-related evidence alone. The public's exasperation is further fueled by the perception that David's youth and relatable persona, built through his Fortnite streaming days and emotive music, make authorities hesitant to act decisively, fearing backlash from fans or media scrutiny. This dynamic underscores a broader critique of the justice system, where celebrities are seen as receiving undue leniency, allowing them to navigate allegations with resources and influence unavailable to the average person, perpetuating a sense of inequity in the pursuit of justice. In the wake of cases like this, one profound lesson stands out: that evidence plays a pivotal role in unraveling the truth, yet it demands meticulous scrutiny to avoid jumping to conclusions. We've seen how fragments of information, from leaked chats and timelines to cryptic lyrics, can build a compelling narrative, but each piece must be weighed carefully against the full context. Rushing to judgment based on isolated details risks overlooking contradictions or alternative explanations, turning speculation into unfounded certainty. For instance, while coincidences in dates or locations might seem damning, they could stem from unrelated factors, and without forensic confirmation like toxicology results, they remain just that, coincidences. The key takeaway is that evidence isn't static. It's a puzzle that requires cross-verification from multiple sources, ensuring no stone is left unturned. Investigators, media, and the public alike must prioritize objectivity, piecing together facts without letting biases cloud the process. This approach underscores the need for a comprehensive, interconnected analysis rather than cherry-picking elements that fit a preferred theory. Consider how personal connections or artistic expressions can be misinterpreted if viewed in isolation. They gain true meaning only when linked to verifiable timelines, witness accounts, and physical proof. Bias creeps in subtly, whether favoring a framed scenario due to celebrity status or assuming guilt from online rumors, and it can distort justice. A holistic review means examining motives, opportunities, and inconsistencies across the board, allowing for multiple possibilities until proven otherwise. In high-profile situations, where social media amplifies every whisper, this disciplined method prevents echo chambers and promotes fairness. It's a reminder that real investigations aren't solved in viral threats but rigorous, evidence-based inquiry that withstands scrutiny. Importantly, this case remains open and unresolved as of October 11, 2025, with no arrests or formal charges. David Anthony Burke, known as D4vd, has not been convicted or even officially named a suspect by LADA despite the swirl of allegations. All discussions, including those highlighting potential involvement, hover in the realm of possibility and conjecture, fueled by incomplete information. The cause of Celeste's death is still deferred, pending further tests, and any narrative pinning blame is speculative at best. This uncertainty calls for restraint. Criticisms and opinions, while valid in public discourse, should be framed as personal views, not definitive truths. We must extend respect to all involved: the victim's family grieving a profound loss, the accused navigating intense scrutiny, and investigators working diligently. Rushing to vilify or defend without closure dishonors the pursuit of justice. Ultimately, the lesson here is patience and empathy. Let the facts emerge fully before drawing lines in the sand. In a world quick to judge, true wisdom lies in waiting for clarity, ensuring that empathy tempers our quest for answers.